Have you got More Than car insurance behind you? More Than, sponsors of Fifth Gear.
Evening, plenty to look forward to in tonight's Fifth Gear. For starters, we'll be crashing this into this. And why we're going to do that? Well, I'll tell you in a few seconds.
Other delights tonight are touring car star and guest presenter Jason Plato, making mischief in the new Ferrari flagship, the 612 Scaglietti. While I'll be finding out what's fastest, Citroën C2 GT or Ford Sport Car. And you can win the winner in our latest Fifth Gear competition. But first, here's something to think about.
Over the years, crash testing has taken an astonishing variety of forms. Oof, I felt that. This next effort by Volvo is particularly inventive.
But until 7 years ago, most cars were only designed to cope with 30 miles an hour head-on into a concrete block. If the steering wheel didn't move too much, the car passed.
Today, crash testing laws are tougher, as are the cars, and the European crash testing outfit NCAP carries out even more challenging tests at an increased speed of 40 miles an hour, and sophisticated dummies measure the human damage in detail.
The better a car does, the more stars it gets, with the maximum being 5. And, as they say, safety saves lives. But it also sells cars.
So manufacturers have a big incentive to produce stronger, safer motors. Fine, good, great.
Well, it's fine, good, great if you've got a new car, but it might not be if you're in an older car, like these. The NCAP test started 7 years ago, but most of the cars on our roads are older than that. A squashy car from, say, 1995 hitting another squashy car at 30 miles an hour might result in survivable injuries for both drivers.
But what happens if that older car hits one of today's 5-star rock-solid cars? Well, we've decided to find out. One deserted crash test area, one old car, one new car. Join us later to see 2 family wagons crash head-on. The results may surprise you.
This is the Ferrari 612 Scaglietti. That's 6 litres, 12 cylinders, and a name that honours Ferrari's favourite coach builder. It costs £170,000, has got 540 horsepower, and will do a staggering 199 miles an hour.
It's the most expensive and most powerful new Ferrari you can buy today. But there's something about long bonnet Ferraris that means you just don't boast about the figures. They have a classier, more artful image. Sergio Scalletti never designed with pen and paper. He preferred sculpting the metal by eye. And I think he'd be rather proud of the car that now bears his name, made in his old factory. The 612 is high-tech and hand-built. Despite being bigger than the 456 it replaces, the aluminium chassis and body means it's lighter. And if you're one of those super rich people interested in buying one,
Like Jamie Oliver.
then you can have a tour to see your car being made before it's shipped down the road to the Maranello factory for an engine, paint and interior.
And the interior, well, it really spoils you. You can even choose what shade of aluminium you have. And then there's the custom Bose stereo. Well, I have to say, it is fantastic. We've got 3 speakers in the front, 4 in the rear, a bass box in the passenger footwell, and would you believe it, a subwoofer on the parcel shelf. However, 170 grand, well, it doesn't get you everything. Sat-nav is an option, as is the Bluetooth connection for your hands-free mobile.
The 612 is Ferrari's only 4-seater, and your mates will easily fit in the deep bucket seats. The big boot will swallow the leather-bound toolkit, the optional 2.5 grams worth of Pininfarina designed luggage, or Tiff's golf clubs. Probably mine as well. So, is this a GT in the traditional sense? Something designed for the very grandest of touring?
Now, I've been very lucky in that I've managed to drive lots of Ferraris and owned one a few years ago. And experience tells me that they all do your head in after maybe an hour or two in the car. You've really got to be in the mood to drive one. This, however, is a completely different experience. It's very relaxing, it's very refined. And one technology which adds to the overall driving pleasure is Ferrari's adaptive damping. Basically, the front wheel senses the bump and tells the rear wheels there's a bump coming. And that just makes the whole drive more relaxing, less clunky over these fairly large bumps we're going over now. You know, I can see myself doing 500-600 miles in this, maybe flying up the Autobahn to pick up one of the girlfriends.
But cruising might be only half the story. Because the engine is mounted so far back, most of the 612's weight is over the rear. A car with sporting pretensions.
Which means it's time to hit the sport button. Now what that does is it'll stiffen up the suspension a wee bit, it'll sharpen up the gear change, it'll also make the engine map slightly more aggressive for power delivery, but more importantly, it'll relax the traction control. Now I'm going to turn it completely off. However, if you're a football player or a TV chef, I suggest you leave that button on. When you start to let it off the leash, it's actually quite nimble. It doesn't really understeer, it's quite a neutral balance to the car. You can get the tail out if you want to be a bit saucy. But the best thing about any Ferrari is the engine. It's the heart of the car. It's a V12, it's super smooth, it's got bundles of power. Don't get much better than that.
The semi-automatic gearbox costs an extra £7,000, yet has been specified by 90% of the buyers. It's perfect for gentle cruising, but when you're getting after it, I just don't like them.
They're just not my cup of tea. It does exactly what it's meant to do. It's a very quick change, but it's just not as precise as I want it to be. Sometimes I might want a very quick gear change, sometimes I might want a slow gear change, depending on what sort of corner I'm in. And this just doesn't give me the control that I need.
But that's not enough to put me off the car. Just see it as an opportunity to save £7,000 and have a manual. Although, with an 18-month waiting list, you can't exactly rush out to the shops and get one tomorrow.
This is undoubtedly the Ferrari I want to spend most time with. It's so versatile. You can cruise by in a cocoon of luxury, or grab it by the scruff of the neck and have some fun. But £170,000 is an awful lot of money. I'd love to own one, but I'd hate to pay for it.
After the break, which 10 grand sports hatch is fastest in our latest shootout? And the shocking reality of what happens when a new car hits an old one. Now for the bit of the show where we find out what's quickest, the fifth gear shootout. In our last series of shootouts, we saw BMW Z4 squeeze past Porsche's Boxster. Nissan's 350Z trounced Audi's most powerful TT. And proved that round our Anglesey circuit in Wales, the 3 Series CSL is a massive 2 seconds quicker than the standard M3. This week, we're looking at 2 10 grand sport hatches, pitching Citroen's new C2 GT, the fastest C2 yet with 110 horsepower and a manual gearbox, head-to-head with the only thing that comes close to it for the money, Ford's Sport Car. The latest and fastest version of one of my favourite handling super minis. And there's an added twist to this week's challenge. You'll get the chance to win the car that's fastest. First up is the Ford, a car that's always cried out for a bit more power. Well, now with this sports car, it's finally got an extra 25 bhp. They've flared out its arches and given it lower tweaked suspension so it handles even better. It's got soft-ish brakes, which sometimes feel like they could be a bit sharper and yet do the job really well. It's got a great steering feel and a lovely gearbox. With minimal body roll and surprisingly little understeer, the sport car is ready to set the pace. Keep it neat and tidy. The first split at radar stops the clock at 25.1 seconds. The next split at the hairpin is reached in 38.7. With a final lap time of 57 seconds. So, how will the new C2 GT compare with Ford's superb little sport car? For all the fuss that Citroën have been making about this being a rally homologation special and sticking a GT badge on the back, I have to say I'm a bit disappointed having stepped into the interior. The so-called sport seats are more like soft armchairs, and there's nothing that sporty about the feel of this chassis either. It's very soft with more roll than the Ford, and the gear change is definitely a lot looser. But one thing that isn't looser are the brakes. Whilst the Fords might have been a bit soft, the Citroëns are sharp, to say the least. In fact, it's very difficult to modulate to get that right bit of feel. And worst of all, if you brake too hard, the brake assist comes in and not only suddenly lurches the car to a much slower speed, but at the same time sticks the hazard lights on. But it does have an extra 15 horsepower, so will that be enough to overcome the nimble Ford? Only the time will tell. By radar, it's edged 0.3 of a second in front. And by the hairpin, it's stretched that to half a second. But there's still the high-speed left-right-left of Douglas Mountview to come. Steady. And while it doesn't gain any more time, it hangs on to pip the sport car and bathe in a moment of glory. Head-to-head, the Citroën C2 GT is the fastest, and it's the car you can win in the latest fifth-gear competition.
Talking of competitions, here are all the cars we gave away last series. You entered in your thousands, doubtless all with the same thought. It won't be me. I never win anything. Well, think again. Allow me to introduce Stephen Orchard from Nottinghamshire, who won our Volvo T5 stealth car, previously owned by one Quentin Wilson. Mumtaz Sadiq from Leeds, winner of our mint 80s Golf. Wayne Bruce from Chelmsford, who took home this iconic classic Jag, and Gordon Blair from Fife, who had the pleasure of winning a brand new Hyundai Getz. These lucky people never thought they'd win either, and look at them now, proud car owners living the dream. But it doesn't stop there. We showed them how to get the best from their new toy. We gave them a taste of the paparazzi lifestyle. And this guy even got to choose his own colour. And it only cost £1 to enter. £1 for all this. We've got a host of competitions planned for this series, and you too could be driving off into the sunset in your very own fifth gear prize. Now, isn't that worth shouting about?
And those competitions start right now. To be in with a chance of winning this week's shootout champion, the Citroën C2 GT, all you have to do is answer this simple question. Our shootout circuit is in Anglesey, but where is Anglesey? Is it off the coast of Wales, South America, or Australia? Call this number to enter, or this one if you want to text us using the word gear along with A, B, or C. And we'll show this lot again at the end of the programme. Lines close at midday on Monday the 12th of April, and you can also enter via our website.
We've decided to find out what happens when an old car meets a new car. We want to find out what a top 5-star safety rating means for the people in here.
And the people in here. It's a simple test. It's a fascinating test, but it's never been done for television before.
We've chosen Renault Espaces because the new one is the real school SWAT. Of all today's 5-star cars, NCAP rate the Espace as the safest. In fact, they say it's the safest car they've ever tested.
This typical 9-year-old Espace was a good performer in its day, and it's just the sort of thing you see full of families all the time. But exactly how much has the new car moved things on? Renaults say it'll absorb 2.5 times the energy of the old car, whilst the body shell has been stiffened to help withstand high-speed crashes.
But if you're not careful, that extra rigidity can transmit increased forces to the next weakest link in the chain. The passengers. So it's vitally important to bring them to as graceful and as cushioned a halt as possible.
Whilst the old car only had 1 airbag, the new one has 8, with the front 2 deploying at varying pressures depending upon the severity of the impact and the weight of the passengers.
There are airbags running along both sides to protect the head, and in the first 2 rows there are airbags at chest level. Drive off without a seatbelt on.
And an annoying bong drives you mad, which scores big points with NCAP.
The cabin boasts even more clever features, like the seatbelt pre-tensioners. 5 milliseconds after a crash, they take up the slack to prevent this happening. Then there's the reinforced rear seats to keep luggage at bay, close contact head restraints all round, and proper 3-point seatbelts in the back. No nasty lap belts to chop you in half here. On paper, it's a state-of-the-art safety system, but how well will this goody two-shoes do in our real-world crash?
To find out, we've come to the Motor Industry Research Association's Havoc area, a secret test site in the middle of nowhere used by the military and government. It has £200,000 worth of electric drum winch, a beast that boasts the power of 200 car engines. When we press fire, a network of cables will pull the 2 cars into one another at 35 miles an hour, guided by a high-tension wire. We're lining them up for the collision the NCAP test is designed to replicate, driver's side to driver's side, just like a real-life head-on smash.
In the cabin are a right pair of dummies. Meet Tiffy and Vic, our stunt stand-ins. Worth £100,000 each, they're wired up to record the G-forces on every part of their bodies. Time to make your predictions and place your bets.
Do you still think they don't make them like they used to, and the new car will tear like tissue?
Or do you think the new car will demolish the old one?
Perhaps you're sceptical and think that the 5 stars are just a marketing ploy and both cars will perform similarly.
Well, don't blink and you won't miss it. To help make sense of the wreckage, we've recruited Crash Engineering Research Chief Richard Morris.
Now, Richard, I first have to say, I mean, this is your job, but to me, I'm always shocked by the amount of damage that's done. And this is just 2 cars at 35 miles an hour going head-to-head. I mean, this guy is just jammed in. There's no way we can get the door open or anything.
No, I don't think on this particular test that there'll be any reasons to get the driver out, because I think he would be dead. We've had a catastrophic failure of the occupant cabin. It's just total overload there, and again, the sill, another major structural part, and that's all just completely disintegrated. The area where his feet were is now roughly where the wheel is, so no, I don't think that would be survivable.
But the torso seems to have gone out of the seatbelt even. The seatbelt hasn't held him.
That's right, I think the seat has actually gone inboard, and that's why he's partly come out of the seatbelt.
And because the driver was lurching around, he wasn't in the airbag's line of fire, which meant it was rendered useless. So, a car that's only 9 years old and yet a lot of damage.
Indeed, yes, not
whereas
good at all.
the newer model looks at first glances to have fared better. Let's see if we can open the door on this one. No, that's still not going to budge, but looking inside, the driver's feet are still on the pedals, there's no intrusion of the steering wheel, but the airbag hasn't gone off. Sure, that's wrong.
Well, it depends on how the car has determined the severity of the impact. If we look at the front of the car, if I move these parts off here, you can see that the main structure here is still fairly intact. We've had a little bit of deformation up here.
And that's a designed crumple zone.
It is, yes. You can see the features to allow it to crush there. So we believe that the car has decided that this was not a severe enough impact to fire the airbags.
This high-speed footage shows how the red car comes to a much more abrupt stop, with the black car's wheels rolling for longer, indicating a gentler deceleration. All the new Espace felt it had to do to protect its occupants was fire the seatbelt pre-tensioners, evidenced by the cracked plastic at the anchor point and mild chafing on the belt itself. Presumably this damage wouldn't have been as bad if this car had hit a car of similar age.
Yes, I believe that's true. This car has seen a lot of damage because it's hit a very, very stiff modern NCAP car. If it had hit a similar car to itself, there'd have been less damage, less injuries, and perhaps the driver would have survived.
So, I mean, it really is a classic double-edged sword.
Yes, I believe it is. And until we see more cars which are highly Euro NCAP star rated, then we'll see this problem as they hit the older cars.
Everybody in the new Espace would have walked away, as might, this time, the passengers in the old Espace. But the data shows their driver would have taken the brunt of the force, up to 84 G at the chest. That could mean massive internal hemorrhaging. The driver's legs would probably have been seriously fractured, with the thigh bones being pushed back through the buttocks. Blood loss would have been enormous, and with access to the lower legs being so restricted, the emergency services would have taken 30 to 40 minutes to extract him. Survival was highly unlikely, and remember, all this at just 35 miles an hour.
If that's got you concerned that you can't afford a safe car, then don't worry. A highly rated car in the right size for you may be cheaper than you think. 5-star cars start at around £5,500 for a second-hand Renault Laguna. And there's a whole host of cheaper 4-star cars that will stand a crash much better than that oh-so-tempting old banger you've got your eye on. The Euro NCAP website has all the ratings, and if you need any more motivation to go there, just remember this. Next week, Adrian's trying the new Audi A6. Vicky's enjoying the best of Geneva. I'm challenging a helicopter in a Porsche GT3. And Michael Schumacher's racing a Eurofighter. See you then.
Well, they think they're entering a game show, but the police are waiting to slap on the handcuffs. Donald McIntyre gives the criminals the biggest shock of their lives. The big sting is tomorrow night at 8. Up next tonight, our movie No Escape.
Have you got More Than car insurance behind you? More Than, sponsors of Fifth Gear.